Sweden and UK figures are not a virus. Punishing Sweden? Exponentialists and ourselves both say a virus goes up in cases. Both say it goes down. Neither says it goes sideways. Note to censors: we use only government data. If you have a problem with the results, speak to the government. This is an extract from Zombie Exponential, focusing on the bizarre numbers in Sweden and the UK. Last time we did this, exponential is linear on log scales, and that's what Bill Gates et al. Are selling, versus the reality that the entire world, barring a few nascent curves, looks like this, humped to high heaven. Which just goes to show the importance of context. What keeps you safe with the virus can get you pregnant, and in both cases you're going to wind up being surrounded by doctors and nurses. I feel there's a philosophical refrain there, starting life in hospital and ending life in hospital, but we'll move on. This time in our world tour we're going to be looking at charts like this. Now the red line is horizontal. Hopefully we can agree on that. That, and only that, is an exponential curve, that red line. But isn't a red line supposed to be going up? And what's with the blue lines? Yes, if this were a chart of e.g. cases for an exponential curve, and nothing, forget them for the moment. Here's an exponential curve on the left, a straight line on log scales, the only curve that can be called exponential. The red line is the gradient of that line, but expressed as a rate, and that rate is constant. Exponential means a times b, a times b times b, a times b times b times b, a times b times b times b times b, each time increasing by the same number, b, the exponent. On a linear scale, the gradient is anything but constant. It increases incredibly quickly. It's the deaths and cases you've been threatened with. Won't bend until the majority of the people have been infected. It does indeed keep going straight up till it hits the moon or the ISS, whichever comes first. If it misses both, it goes on forever, literally to infinity and beyond. No wonder people are scared of the virus. But on a log scale, that gradient looks constant, because on a log scale it is. The apparent gradient is the scaling factor, or exponent. So if it goes from 1 to 10 in 3 days, it'll go from 10 to 100 in 3 days. How many times have you heard phrases like doubles every 2 days? And how many times have you heard, if we do nothing by the end of X, basically the whole nation, country, solar system, Kardashian palace will be infected? Do they have a palace? Somebody please advise. It might be important. So that's what the red line is, the entire length of the grey exponential line. It goes up at a constant rate, here indicated as 1.15 on the right hand scale. What do the blue lines have to do with it? Absolutely nothing, they're just there for the moment. Just remember, horizontal line is the gradient of an exponential line on log scales. More accurately, it's the rate by which each data point increases, e.g. doubling each day, factor equals 2 on the right hand side. Here it's factor 1.15, but if it's not horizontal, it's not exponential. And now we come to the blue lines. That's South Korea on a log scale. There's our normal distribution, or logistic maybe. I'll be intrigued to look into that. So red, horizontal, is the gradient of an exponential curve. The rate of increase of cases over time is constant. The actual curve has been there all along, but it wasn't relevant and won't be relevant beyond giving rise to the horizontal line. So I left it hidden, showing only its growth rate, which looks like gradient on log scales. And in terms of visualizing the horizontal straight line of an exponential curve's growth rate, it doesn't matter if we use log scales, as here for the country cases, or linear scales, as here, because horizontal is horizontal. So what is this safari about? We're looking for the pale blue dotted lines. And if any of the pale blue dotted lines are horizontal, matching the red line, then yes, that chart shows an exponential curve. Having done yesterday's world tour, do you recall any charts going to heaven? So, no, we already know we're going looking for a mythical zombie exponential, but why bother? We know they're not out there. But the trolls and loyalists just keep saying, of course they're not exponential anymore, you're such an idiot, lockdown saved us, how can you be such a moron? Well, I was born and it kind of happened, I guess. Even a troll, however, should recognize that lockdown only has an effect after lockdown. So if you hadn't realized it before, then here is basically another chart most viewers have seen lots of times. That dotted or dashed blue line below is basically this chart on the left as we've used for UK data. Or this one, old format with more detail. It's the growth rate in new cases and how it changes over time. In the UK, it's been declining since day one. It's what normal distributions do, as opposed to exponential, which is what? A horizontal line. So way before lockdown, the growth rate of new cases was already in decline. But guess what? As soon as lockdown was announced, lockdown is working, the growth in cases is declining. No, it was always declining, but do you think a single reporter called them on it? Of course not. So you're about to put a stake through the chest of the zombie exponential that just won't quit. Or is that vampires? And this is what you're going to be looking for. You see this, and the rate of growth of new cases was already declining from day one. Then it was never exponential. And you look for that initial drop first as the first indicator, then check for that descending line below the humped curve. That's the cases diminishing in a 1-2 whammy. Never exponential. The blue dash line will break through the green dash line, one on the right hand side, at which point cases are unchanged, i.e. peak or flat. And the rate will continue to drop until it hits a minimum and the contagion is over. You're down to a few cases a day. At which point the blue line bounces around 1 as a few new cases arrive, then none, or a few more, or just a couple. The contagion is not a material factor. Interestingly, the first minimum isn't the true absolute minimum, because looky here. There's a mini contagion here, and gosh, what shape is that? Is it a bird? Is it a plane? A rocket ship going to the moon? No, it's normal hump man. Did I really just say that? There's even a third mini contagion here. There's a fourth, and a fifth, and a sixth here. One wave superimposed on another wave. And they're worried about second wave? Korea's up to 6 and it's over, man. Ripples fading away. Isn't it remarkable how people like Gates go on about uncertainty when it's pretty straightforward when you look at a chart? Why would smart people be uncertain when we say it's pretty obvious? Because if it's uncertain, you have to keep listening to scientists and government. You have to be cautious. You have to do what they tell you. Funny that. So no, it's not uncertain. It's pretty damned obvious. And now it's time to hunt the mythical zombie exponential and ensure that none are out there so we can have this eradicated forever. Here's the real charts we're going to be working with. In the World Tour, scan for initial descent, continuing descent, hit 1, peak, and minimum below 1. Except, it just goes sideways at 1? Sweden, it seems, was getting a little too much attention, and that was ruining the narrative. Someone's had a word, and now Sweden is no longer acting like a virus, exponential, normal, or otherwise. It's just going sideways until the punishment is sufficient to show lockdown is necessary. Zoomed in and notice how eerily regular those waveforms are for new cases, dotted dark blue, new deaths, dotted red, and growth in new cases, pale blue dashed. When did the virus transform from a simple biomachine to a 50s bad sci-fi waveform propagating out, infecting the world? But it's not just Sweden. Wonder why our initial Hubei-like UK projections went off the rails? Here's part of the answer. And remember those peaks weeks away? Oh, it's arrived, but not really. Let's not get too optimistic. We've got initial, almost peak, continuing, almost peak, big bounce, continuing, ooh, almost touch, another bounce. What the? Just sticking at 1? As a pilot, it looks like a novice pilot trying to land on runway 1, and maybe that's not so far from the truth. The virus doesn't know or care about runway 1, below which cases fall away. It doesn't know or care about the contagion being over. It just does its best and fails against the human immune system. That unsung hero never mentioned by the government or Gates. It has no interest in sticking at 1 because it has no idea of what happens below 1, but politicians do. Below 1, the contagion is dying, as it has since day 1. New case rates decaying as they do every virus because it's never exponential. The crisis is over as soon as you see that decay, because you know you're dealing with a contagion being beaten by a far more sophisticated enemy, our immune system, the one we're not allowed to trust. Funny that. The crisis is over the moment you see a car swerving away from going to hit you, or the pedestrian run clear of the car having first stepped in front of you. Events continue, but the crisis is over. The cases continue. The pedestrian continues. The car continues. It all continues. but everything is already sorted. It's no longer a crisis. This, if it wasn't so tragic for our country, would be funny. A government trying to land a contagion on one, keeping it alive. Because what happens if it goes below 1 and dies? Who needs a vaccine if the crisis is over? Who needs a vaccine if you can be healthy and go about your day? And you wonder why healthy people aren't allowed out. They told you, but did you listen? You ain't coming out till the vaccine, and here it is, the non-virus virus. And why are we allowed to go down finally? Because of a second wave. They finally figured out a plausible reason to let us go down. That, and frankly, I think they ran out of bodies to count as Covid-19. But here we go again. We've got the initial decline, almost touches 1, so right bounces again, then it's continuing down again, almost peak, touches 1. Big bounce, get away from that, far too dangerous. Decline again, ooh, it almost touched. Another bounce, through peak, briefly, and then sideways, until down, finally, at the last moment. Too much media heat, falsified death certificates. Oh, that's terrible, and of course those responsible have been found and punished. Not policy then. Oh no, how could you possibly think something so irresponsible? I've no idea what was actually said when they admitted that, because I don't care. This more closely resembles me after years of not flying than it does a virus. And actually, I don't do too bad in reality. The virus, well, if it don't look like a duck and don't quack like a duck. So yeah, Sweden, lockdown rebel, being punished. UK power centre, keep it going. But hey, that's just what could be happening politically. What is happening for certain are that these are government figures, and that ain't no virus. You figure out the rest. Neither Sweden nor UK fit either an exponential herd immunity or normal logistic model. The virus doesn't report numbers. Politicians do. Here's what a normal sick virus experience looks like. That's it for this extract. See you in the next video. I'm still Andrew Mather, 6-year-old Brit, mathematician, financier, technologist, husband, biker, pilot, healer, whatever. Feel free to get in touch, andrew@peerlessreads.com or andrew@amather.com. Either should get to me.